Parents chose my adopted sister over me, until my business outshined her graduation and I got the last word. I'm 28 male and my family has always been complicated. My parents raised me alongside my adopted sister, Julia, who's 26 now. She came into our lives when she was just 2, and from the moment she arrived, it felt like she was the star of the show. I'm not exaggerating when I say that my parents showered her with attention, affection, and everything in between. Meanwhile, I was left to fend for myself emotionally. Growing up, there were countless moments when their favoritism was painfully obvious. If Julia wanted something, she got it. No questions asked. The dollhouse for Christmas? Done. A trip to Disneyland for her birthday? Of course. Meanwhile, I would get something practical like new school supplies or clothes. I didn't mind at first. I was the older brother, and I understood she had been through a lot in her early life. But as time went on, it became clear that I wasn't just being overlooked, I was being sidelined. When I was 12 and Julia was 10, we both entered a local art competition. I worked on my piece for weeks, pouring my heart into every detail. Julia, on the other hand, threw something together the night before. The day of the competition, our parents only took photos of her standing by her painting, completely ignoring mine. I didn't win, and neither did she, but the way they acted, you'd think Julia had just won a Nobel Prize. High school wasn't much different. Julia was the cheerleader, the social butterfly, the girl who could do no wrong. I was more reserved, focused on my studies and my dream of starting my own business someday. Whenever Julia needed help with her homework, I was there. When she wanted a ride to a party, I'd drop everything. But when I had achievements to share, a science fair win, getting into my top choice college, my parents barely acknowledged them. By the time I graduated, I knew I couldn't stay under their roof much longer. I wanted to build something of my own, something that couldn't be overshadowed by Julia's charm or my parents' neglect. So, I moved to another city for college, working part-time jobs to support myself. I studied business management, taking every opportunity to learn about entrepreneurship. Julia stayed back, attending a local college and living with our parents. They funded her entire education, bought her a car, and continued to treat her like royalty. I remember one holiday visit when they proudly showed off Julia's new car, calling it a reward for hard work. Meanwhile, I had to explain why I was driving a beat-up old sedan I bought with my own savings. They barely listened, too busy praising Julia's accomplishments. Despite the emotional distance, I stayed in touch. I hoped that one day they'd see me for who I was, someone strong, independent, and capable. But every call, every visit, was the same. Julia this, Julia that. It was like I didn't exist unless they needed something practical, help with the computer, fixing things around the house, or giving Julia advice. Fast forward to my late 20s, and my business was finally taking off. I worked tirelessly to build an eco-friendly home goods store from the ground up. It was my passion, my escape, and my proof that I could succeed without their support. I was preparing for the grand opening. A dream come true, and despite everything, I decided to invite my family. The call was supposed to be simple, just an invitation to share this important moment with them. But my mother's response made my stomach churn. "That's wonderful, honey, you know, Julia's graduation is the same week. Maybe we could combine the celebrations?" Combine? My heart sank. After all these years of working in the shadows, sacrificing, building something entirely my own, they wanted me to share my moment with Julia. Again. I tried to stay calm. "Mom, this is a big deal for me. I've been working on this for years. Can we celebrate separately?" Her tone shifted, almost dismissive. "Oh, come on, it's just a store. Julia's graduating with honors. It'll be perfect, 2 celebrations in one." I clenched my jaw, holding back the frustration boiling inside me. "Mom, this store is my life. It's more than just a store. I need this to be about my hard work for once." Silence. Then, the same old response. "You're being selfish. Julia's always been there for you, and you can't even share one day." I hung up before I said something I regret. The words, selfish, echoed in my head. Was I selfish for wanting one moment of recognition? For wanting to celebrate my hard work without being overshadowed by Julia's constant spotlight? I sat there, replaying the conversation in my mind. The old feelings of inadequacy crept back. No matter what I did, I was never enough for them. But something inside me snapped that day. I realized I was done trying to earn their approval. The grand opening was a week away. I poured everything into making it perfect, inviting friends, colleagues, and local media. I didn't mention the event to my family again. If they wanted to show up, they'd had to come on my terms. A few days before the event, I got a call from Julia. "Hey, Mom told me about your store. I think it's great you're doing this, but do you really need to have the opening the same week as my graduation? It's kind of inconvenient for everyone." I took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. "Julia, I've been planning this for months. It's not about competing with your graduation. It's about finally having something that's mine." She laughed, a soft, condescending sound. "You've always been so dramatic. It's just a store. Can't you reschedule?" And there he was, the same dismissive attitude I'd grown up with, but this time I wasn't going to let it slide. "No, Julia, I can't reschedule. And if you can't respect that, then maybe you shouldn't come." She was silent for a moment. "Fine, if that's how you feel." The call ended and I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time, I was standing my ground. The day of the grand opening arrived. My store was packed with people who believed in me, who supported my vision. The energy was electric, and for the first time, I felt truly seen. My parents and Julia didn't show up, and surprisingly, I was okay with that. As the night went on, I gave a speech thanking everyone for their support. My voice cracked a little as I spoke about my journey, the challenges, and the triumphs. When I looked around the room, I saw genuine pride in the eyes of my friends and customers, something I'd never seen in my parents. It was in that moment I realized something profound. I didn't need their approval to feel whole. My success, my happiness wasn't tied to their recognition anymore. 2 weeks passed after the grand opening, and I hadn't heard from my parents or Julia. At first, I told myself I didn't care. But deep down, a part of me still longed for some acknowledgement, even if it was just a small, "Congratulations." Instead, there was only silence. I threw myself into my work, managing the store, expanding our online presence, and building relationships with local vendors. The community's support was overwhelming. Customers loved the eco-friendly products, and I even had a few interviews with local media outlets. Success was everything I had dreamed of, but there was still a lingering emptiness that no amount of sales could fill. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "We need to talk. Come over for dinner tomorrow." I stared at the message, debating whether to respond. After everything that had happened, did I really want to walk back into that house? But curiosity got the better of me. Maybe they finally realized how hurtful they'd been. Maybe they wanted to make things right. The next evening, I arrived at my parents' house. The atmosphere felt tense as soon as I walked in. My mom greeted me with a strained smile, and my dad barely looked up from the newspaper. Julia was already seated at the dining table, scrolling through her phone, her expression unreadable. Dinner started with the usual small talk, questions about work, polite nods, nothing substantial. Then, just as I was about to excuse myself, my mom cleared her throat. "We've been thinking about the store," she began. "It's impressive what you've accomplished, but..." There it was. The but. My chest tightened. "But," she continued, "we were hoping you'd reconsider combining your success with Julia's future. She's been struggling to find her path after graduation, and we thought maybe you could give her a role in the business." I blinked, trying to process what I was hearing. "You're asking me to hire Julia?" My dad finally spoke up. "It's not just hiring her. We're thinking of a partnership. She could bring a fresh perspective, maybe help with marketing. You two working together could be great for the family." I felt my hands clench under the table. "So let me get this straight. You ignored my grand opening, dismissed all my hard work, and now you want me to hand over part of my business to Julia because she's struggling?" Julia looked up from her phone, her eyes narrowing. "It's not like that. I just thought we could help each other. Family businesses thrive when there's collaboration." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Collaboration? She hadn't shown the slightest interest in my business before, and now she wanted in because things were going well. My voice was cold when I responded. "This isn't about collaboration. This is about you guys trying to make everything about Julia again. I built this on my own. I'm not going to let you take that away from me." My mom's face hardened. "We're not taking anything away. We're trying to help you. Julia has always supported you." I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. "No, she hasn't. She supported herself, and you supported her. I spent my entire life being second to Julia, and now, when I've finally made something of my own, you want me to hand it over. I won't do it." The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. My dad sighed, shaking his head. "You're being unreasonable. This isn't just about you. It's about family." I stood up, my heart pounding. "No, it's about control. You can't stand that I've done something without your approval." "Well, I don't need it. I'm done being the backup plan." Julia's voice was sharp. "You're acting like a child. All we wanted was to be part of your success." I turned to her, my eyes blazing. "You don't get to waltz in now that everything's going well and pretend you've been supportive. You've never cared about my dreams, Julia. You only care when it benefits you." Without waiting for a response, I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. My mom called after me, but I didn't turn around. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn their love and respect, but that night, I realized I didn't need it anymore. I had built something real, something they couldn't take from me, and I wasn't going to let them diminish that. The drive home was quiet, the streets dark and empty. My emotions were a whirlwind, anger, hurt, and strangely, a sense of liberation. I had finally said everything I'd been holding in for years. It was painful, but it was also freeing. The next morning, I woke up to several missed calls and texts from my parents. I didn't answer. Instead, I went to the store, poured my energy into the business, and focused on the people who truly supported me. My friends, my employees, my customers, they were my real family now. A few days later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my parents. I hesitated before opening it, unsure of what to expect. Inside was a handwritten note from my mom. "We're sorry for how things turned out. We've been reflecting on everything you said. Please come home for dinner when you're ready. We love you." I folded the letter and set it aside, unsure of how to feel. It wasn't an apology for their behavior, but it was something. Maybe they were beginning to understand, or maybe it was just another attempt to pull me back into their world. Either way, I wasn't ready to face them yet. For now, my focus was on my business, my future, and the life I was building on my own terms. Update. It's been a few months since that dinner, and a lot has happened. After receiving that letter from my parents, I didn't respond immediately. I needed time to heal and reflect. Their words, while seemingly apologetic, didn't fully address the years of pain and neglect I had endured. I wasn't ready to forgive so easily, and I wasn't sure if I ever would be. In the meantime, my business continued to thrive. Sales skyrocketed, and I was even featured in a well-known lifestyle magazine for eco-friendly entrepreneurs. The recognition was surreal, but it felt deserved. For once, I was living a life where my hard work was acknowledged, not brushed aside. One day, I was at the store arranging a new display when Julia walked in. I hadn't seen her since that night at my parents' house. She looked different, less confident, maybe even nervous. She stood near the door, hesitating before approaching me. "I'm not here to argue," she said quietly. "I just want to talk." I crossed my arms, unsure where this was going. "Go ahead." She sighed, looking around the store. "This place is incredible. I should have said that before. You've done something amazing." Her words caught me off guard. Julia wasn't one to admit fault or give praise easily. I didn't respond right away, waiting for her to continue. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. You were right. Mom and Dad have always favored me, and I let it happen. I didn't realize how much it hurt you until recently." Her voice cracked slightly, and for the first time, I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. "I guess I always thought you were strong enough to handle it. I didn't see how much you were hurting because I was too caught up in my own world." Hearing her say those words stirred something in me, anger, sadness, but also a glimmer of hope. Maybe she was finally starting to understand. "I've always been strong," I said, my voice steady, "but that doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It's not easy being invisible in your own family." She nodded, tears welling up. "I'm sorry, I really am. I can't change the past, but I want to make things right. Not for Mom and Dad, just for us." I took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. "Making things right isn't going to be easy, Julia. It's going to take time." "I know," she whispered, "but I'm willing to try if you are." For the first time in years, I felt a small crack in the wall I had built around my heart. Maybe she really was trying. Maybe we could rebuild something, not as rivals, but as siblings. We talked for a while longer about the store, her future plans, and the strained relationship with our parents. She admitted that she had been struggling post-graduation, not because she wasn't capable, but because she didn't know who she was outside of our parents' constant praise. Before she left, she extended an olive branch. "If you ever need help around the store, real help, not taking over, I'd love to be involved, no pressure." I nodded, appreciating the gesture. "We'll see, one step at a time." After she left, I sat alone in the store, reflecting on everything. Julia's visit was unexpected, but it felt like a turning point. I wasn't ready to fully trust her yet, but I was open to the possibility of healing, something I never thought I'd consider. A week later, my parents invited me to another dinner. I hesitated but decided to go. This time, I set my boundaries clearly. If they started pushing Julia's involvement in my business again, I'd walk out. To my surprise, the dinner was different. My parents were quieter, more reflective. My mom even apologized, not a vague, half-hearted apology, but a real one. "We were wrong to dismiss your accomplishments. We've been unfair to you, and we're sorry." My dad chimed in, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "We're proud of you. We didn't say it enough, but we are. We just want to be part of your life again." It wasn't perfect, and I wasn't ready to forgive everything, but it was a start. For the first time, I felt like they were genuinely listening. Rebuilding those relationships will take time. Trust isn't something that can be restored overnight. But I'm open to trying, for myself and for my future. As for my business, it remains mine, my dream, my hard work, and my success. But now, for the first time, I'm willing to let my family be a part of my life on my terms. Healing isn't linear, but it's possible. And for the first time in years, I feel like I'm on the right path.